I really messed up marrying a model. It's way better to be with an unattractive woman. Smart men go for the so-called ugly duckling. The thing is, relationships are all about value exchange. I give to you, you give to me. Back and forth, mutual effort. The problem with women who are too beautiful is that they think just being pretty is enough. That their looks alone are such a gift that you should feel lucky just to be around them and basically serve them. And why do they think that way? Because that's how it's always been for them. Their beauty and face have always been enough to get the bill covered or to walk into any exclusive place. Guys bend over backwards for them, and no man ever tells them no. They're used to getting everything just for showing up and existing. The issue with marrying a woman like that is that, yeah, at first you're enchanted. But after a while you get used to her beauty. And suddenly, this dynamic, where you're doing everything and carrying the weight of both your lives while she pays you by just being pretty, starts to feel unfair. You stop enjoying it, and you start resenting her. Then there's the second problem. After a few years, beauty fades. And she enters this really tough, bitter phase because her whole identity was built on being beautiful. Now she doesn't have that currency anymore, and it's hard for her to adapt. She resists entering the real world where everything is a give and take, where people give because they get something in return, not just because someone exists or blesses the room with their majestic presence. As a man, the best thing that can happen to you in life is finding an ugly duckling. That's the woman who, when she was younger, didn't think of herself as pretty. Maybe because she had gorgeous sisters or friends and didn't stand out, or maybe she wasn't athletic and had to find her place in the world some other way, by developing a real personality. Maybe she's smart, loves to study, learn to be empathetic, kind, caring. And if you're lucky enough to see her sensual side, and she starts seeing it through your eyes, she blossoms. She starts to feel sexy, beautiful. She discovers this whole new side of herself. And that ugly duckling becomes a swan. Now you've got the best of both worlds. A woman who's grounded, who understands how life works, who doesn't expect to be worshipped just for existing, but who's also discovered and embraced her sensuality. And the key is, her whole personality doesn't revolve around her looks. Look how smart I am. If I had to explain to this little guy why earning 100,000 can sometimes be much harder and take longer than earning $1 million, and I wanted to explain it in a way that he'd understand and never forget, I'd say, first, bring me a kilo of tortillas and tell your brother to bring me a cup of cream. Now, the tortilla shop is just 3 blocks away, so he'd probably walk. But the cream shop is 12 blocks away, so his brother would likely take the motorcycle. Ironically, the one who went nearby for tortillas would take longer to return than the one who went further for cream. The same thing happens with money. 2 brothers, like you, were English teachers. One wanted to save up 100,000 and the other wanted $1 million. The one aiming for 100,000 thinks, all right, I charge $100 a day for classes. I'll need to work 1,000 days to save up 100,000. In about 3 years, I can do it. Meanwhile, the other brother thinks, it's going to take me 30 years at this rate. I can't walk. It's too slow. So he decides to take the motorcycle. In the first year, he teaches basic English on social media, and he gets lucky, gaining 1 million followers. In the second year, he starts selling online courses for 100 each. But instead of teaching one-on-one like his brother, he's on the motorcycle and can sell hundreds of courses a day. That's how he reaches 1 million before his brother. Not by working more or taking more time, but by using a faster vehicle. A friendship between a man and a woman? It's like a lie wrapped in another lie. Here's the truth about that kind of relationship. Some guy posted a TikTok saying, ladies, I don't know if you already realize this, but you definitely have at least one guy friend who's in love with you and just pretending he's not. So I went down the rabbit hole of the comments. One woman replies, of course we know. We just pray to God he never says it out loud. Another one goes, yeah, I know. But I play dumb because I don't want to lose another friend. Then another woman chimes in, honestly, they don't even hide it. I have to act like I don't notice, just hoping one day he'll give it up. And then this girl says, sometimes I know he likes me even before he figures it out. Women know when their guy friend is into them, but they play dumb because they're not interested. And they also know that the friendship only exists because he thinks he has a chance. So you keep the loyal puppy around with a sausage you're never going to give him? That's messed up. But then again, so is the nice guy, who's really just a wolf in sheep's clothing, pretending to be your friend when he doesn't actually care about friendship. The right thing would be for him to say, hey, I'm not here for friendship. And for her to say, you're never going to be more than a friend to me. And with everything laid out on the table, Each person can decide what to do. If you want to understand why people behave like this, why we hide what we really want, read The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. This is how an insecure woman ruins all her relationships. Here's the tragedy that always plays out right at the start. He likes you. He wants to win you over. He texts you every day, invites you out multiple times a week. He's thoughtful and sweet until he finally sparks your interest. And then you start giving back. You send him cute messages, make time for him in your schedule, you're thoughtful too. Everything's going well because you're both putting in effort. But then one day, once he feels like he's got you, he starts losing interest. He pulls back, puts in less effort. So what does a confident woman do at that point? A confident woman thinks,
if you're not into me, I'm not into you either. And it's not out of revenge. It's because what I liked about you, what I found attractive, was how much you wanted me and how you treated me. And now, you don't have that anymore. Now I see it clearly. The prince turned into a toad. I'm just not into you anymore. That's the right answer.
And what usually happens next? The guy notices. He realizes he's losing her, and he snaps back into being sweet and attentive again. He puts in the effort because he sees he can't take her for granted. And the confident woman? Maybe she gives him a second chance. And then the relationship starts to move forward in a good way. He's afraid of losing her. He knows he can't slack off because if he stops loving her, stops trying, he stops being attractive to her. Now, what about the insecure woman? How does she ruin the relationship? When the guy pulls away and stops trying, it hurts her ego. She starts to feel like she's not good enough. And then one of two things happens. Either she starts trying harder to prove she is good enough, she becomes more thoughtful, texts him more, calls him more. But then the guy thinks, wait, so the less effort I put in, the more you give me. I thought you were into me because of how well I treated you. But if I treat you worse and you treat me better, maybe you didn't like me for that after all. So maybe he puts in even less effort. And she panics, thinks it's her fault, and doubles down even more. This is the kind of relationship where she ends up getting walked all over. And the worst part? He starts to believe it. Since she feels worthless and treats him like he's some kind of king, he starts believing it too, and treats her the same way. Then there's the other version of how she ruins it. He thinks he already got her, so he takes her for granted, loses interest, stops putting in effort, and she starts giving him discounts.
You don't need to pick me up, I'll come over. Forget dinner out, I'll just come to your place and we can watch Netflix.
What time works for you?
Anytime, really.
And he keeps saying he's more and more busy, takes longer to reply until one day he disappears. And then she says,
if he didn't want to be with me, why didn't he just say so?
Too late.
Did you know that if you buy a box with 100 envelopes and a pen, and you number them from 1 to 100, and on the first day you put $1 in envelope 1, on the second day $2 in envelope 2, and the third day $3 in the envelope 3, and the fourth day $4 in the envelope 4, and keep going for 100 days until you reach envelope 100. Did you know that at the end of 100 days, you would not only have the habit of saving, but you would also have $5,050? Well, that's quite a bit. And how many envelopes would I need if I only wanted to put together for the latest iPhone that costs $1,000? You would have to save for 45 days. Wow. Wait a sec. And if I wanted a really small apartment that would cost around $50,000? And how many envelopes would I need, or how many days would I have to save? Okay, let's see. The formula to know how much you would save with any number of envelopes is the number of envelopes multiplied by the number of envelopes plus 1 divided by 2. For example, in 100 envelopes, is 100 by 101 divided by 2 equal to 5,050? But answering your question, the majority of people believe that to save, let's say, $50,000, you would need thousands of envelopes and save for years, and they are surprised to hear that you only need 316 envelopes. You'd be finished in 316 days, which is less than a year. Keep in mind, this isn't easy. On day 300, you'd need to save $300. And on the next day, the day 301, $301. Quite a lot for many. And so, the first envelopes are very easy. $1, $2, $3. But the last ones are very difficult. Why don't you start with the 100 envelopes and fill them at your own pace? At the end, you will not only have $5,050, but you will also have formed the habit of saving.
All right, why not watch Why make the sacrifice of not watching? Because yeah, it's a sacrifice. It's hard. You're in your room, bored or anxious or frustrated because things aren't working out. You look at your phone. You could just close the curtain, lie down, watch and take the edge off that anxiety. So why not do it? My answer. Because you end up feeling satisfied. But not in a good way. Not with something real. It's like, imagine a caveman who, every time he feels hungry, you hand him a little bag of animal crackers. Just flour and sugar. Sure, the hunger goes away, but he's not getting any nutrients, and he's not developing the skills of a hunter. And if you keep giving him cookies, you're raising a total useless dude. That's what you're doing to yourself when you watch. For example, if you have a girlfriend, it's not the same as holding back all week, letting that tension build up like a raging bull, and then finally seeing her on the weekend. And when you see her, there's this intense spark between you. You can't take your eyes off her. Everything you say sounds interesting. You want to touch her arm, hold her hand, rest your hand on her leg. You admire each other, talk, enjoy each other, and eventually you devour one another multiple times. And she feels wanted. Because there's nothing a woman loves more than feeling desired. They love that feeling. But if you already took care of yourself twice this morning and twice yesterday, she's not going to feel desired. And guess what? She won't feel desired by you, but she will feel desired by someone else. And that's an unmet need. It doesn't mean she's a bad person, but when hunger meets opportunity, you get the idea. And look, if you don't have a girlfriend, it takes guts. It's like you need to be really hungry to go hunt. You need a lot of courage to go risk embarrassment and talk to a woman. And obviously, you're not going to do that if you just stuffed your face with a pack of animal crackers. Every time your body starts building up desire and hormones, creating the tension that should push you to go talk to a woman, you just throw all that at a screen. The reason I believe it's worth making the sacrifice of not watching porn is this. When you watch porn, you feel satisfied. But that fake satisfaction makes me useless because it kills the drive I need. Like, 70% of your life is what you do every day. Your habits. It's wild how just focusing on a few key habits can totally shift your mood, your body, and the direction your life's going. Because every day, you're laying bricks on the same tower. You keep building. You're not worth that much because of who you are right now, but because of who you could become if you take care of yourself. What most people don't get is that your job isn't to rush your growth. That's pointless. You can't force natural processes. Your job is to take care of yourself. Sleep well, eat well, exercise, spend time with your family and friends, and set aside a little time each day to educate yourself. I believe people don't bloom when you pressure them. They bloom when you give them the right conditions, when you're patient, when you believe in them, and when you let them do their thing in peace. You don't need money to attract women. This actually happened. I once heard a rich doctor say, back when I was a broke actor in my 20s, I did way better with women than I do now as a doctor with money in my 30s. Why? Because as an actor, he was taking advantage of the big fish rule. What's the big fish rule? When it comes to attracting women, it's way better to be a big fish in a small pond than a medium fish in a big pond where there are way bigger fish. In the small one, you're the alpha. In the big one, you're nobody. Okay, but how did you use that rule when you were an actor? And how can I use it? When I was a broke actor in my 20s, I had girls to spare. Because even though I was performing in a tiny local theater, in a no-name play, I was the lead. And in that little space, I was the alpha. I was the king of that tiny castle. Alright, but I'm not an actor. So what now? How can a regular guy use this rule to attract women? If you're the rich guy in a poor town, the big shot in a small province, you'll attract more women than someone who has more money in a big city. The lead singer of a small band that plays at a crappy bar on Saturdays gets way more attention that night than a better singer who's just back up at a major venue. As the lead actor in a small production, I was the alpha for a while. Being at the top of any dominance hierarchy, no matter how ridiculous, is incredibly effective when it comes to attracting women. To get women, you don't need money or a Greek god body. You just need to find a pond where you are the biggest fish. Sometimes that pond doesn't even exist yet, but you can build it yourself. For example, one of my cousins organized a dart tournament in the little town where he lives. And for that whole weekend, he was the star. Not just because he's good at darts, but because he organized the event. He was the king of that tiny castle. So, what's the tiny castle you're going to rule? Pick something you're already kind of good at and practice it every single day. All women, but especially young and attractive ones, face a really tough problem. And that is, when should they settle for you, and when is it better to just move on and keep waiting for someone better to come along? Because the thing is, she wants a committed relationship. She wants a family. But not with just any loser. She wants that with the best man she can get. Since she's a teenager, there's been a constant stream of guys hitting on her. And if she's pretty, even more guys approach her. If she works out and takes care of her body, even more and better guys approach her. If she's fun and well-educated, even better candidates show up. Guys come around if they feel like they're in her league. If you see a woman and you're more than 2 points below her, you won't even go near. If she's beautiful, elegant, and rich, and you're not good-looking, have no money, and aren't part of that social circle, you know it's not a fair trade. And us men, we do the same. If a woman is 2 points below you, maybe you're open to a fling, but you don't take her seriously. I picture each person like a bar. If you're an 8, your range goes from a 7, if you're slacking, to a 9, if you're on your game. That's your dating range, minimum to maximum. That's why some women, and this is funny, cue the laugh signs, get offended when some really ugly guy catcalls them or hits on them. Because it's like, how dare you, peasant of 5, come up to me when I see myself as the Princess of Monaco? It feels like an insult to their self-image. And that's another problem. We all have a distorted image of ourselves. For example, you as a man think you're worth a lot. You think you're gonna go far, that you'll get a six-pack, be strong, have a successful business, drive a nice car, dress sharp. But today, you're wearing old ripped stained clothes that don't even fit. You've got no money and a gut. But you're like, oh yeah, but I'm not worth what I am now. I'm worth what I will become. So you think you're a 9. Meanwhile, she sees you as a solid 4, and then you go and hit on her, someone who's an 8. And you think you're offering her a good deal based on who you plan to be. And she's either offended or almost offended that this chubby dude thinks he has a shot. But here's the thing. The same thing happens to her. Back in middle school, high school, maybe college, she was the hot girl everyone wanted. She was cheerful, fun, pretty, had a nice body. And she kept that image of herself as the one everyone desired. But now she's no longer like that, and won't be again. And that messes up her life because she still thinks she's a 9. She's still waiting for men in that range, when in reality, fewer and fewer guys desire her every day. So yeah, women face a brutal dilemma. The problem is, I want the best man I can lock down, but I don't have infinite time. And every year, I'm less and less desired. So what do? Do I settle for the dude in front of me? Or do I keep playing the game and exploring, knowing it gets a little harder every day? It's usually not an easy decision. Well, sometimes it is, like, imagine an American guy comes to Mexico. Back in the States, he was a 5. Nobody paid attention to him. But here, just for being American, speaking English, and earning in dollars, we look up to him and see him as an 8. And he falls for a woman who, to Mexicans, is a 7. But to him, she's a 9. He sees her as warm, loving, exotic. And he values her more than she values herself. And she values him more than he values himself back home. So both feel like they've hit the jackpot. And they get together and live happily. One extra thing you can do is go where you're more valued. Like, I've heard pilots do really well with flight attendants. Women who work on planes know what it means to be a pilot. They admire them. So pilots do much better with them than with other women. Same goes for film and theater directors with actresses. Or Americans and Europeans in Latin America. And Latin American women in Europe. Personally, I value creative and passionate people. So a woman who plays an instrument or paints or dances, I might see her as a 9, even if others see her as an 8. So another thing you can do, without changing anything, is go where what you already are is appreciated. Now, by far, the thing that boosts your value the most in the dating market is being healthy and attractive. If you're a woman, doing something you're passionate about. If you're a man, being able to make money. Under what circumstances is it okay to lie? When should you lie instead of telling the truth? For example, the other day some jerk asked me at a wedding, "Hey, your brother cheats on his wife, right?" And look, the short answer is yes. Yeah, he has cheated on her. But just because he asked me doesn't mean he has a right to know. He's sticking his nose where it doesn't belong, just trying to satisfy his curiosity and be a gossip. What would you have done? I felt completely stuck. Because if I tell the truth, yes, my brother has cheated on his wife, I'd feel like you stole info that wasn't yours to have, and I'd feel guilty, like I betrayed my brother. Now, if I lie and say something like, "No, not that I know of," or "I don't think so," Why? Then I'm straight up lying. And I'd feel guilty for going against my own rule of never lying. And if I say, I'm not going to answer that, well, that's basically saying yes. Because if the answer were no, I'd just say no. What would you have done? I'm not proud of what I said. I feel guilty about how I answered. I'll tell you what I said in a sec. But I kept thinking about it. And I really believe there are situations where lying is better than telling the truth. Like when someone's trying to stick their nose in things that aren't their business, and you lie to protect your own privacy, or someone else's. If my cousin hasn't come out yet and someone asks, hey, is he gay? Or, is it true your sister got fired? Is it true your friend doesn't pay taxes? Is it true your brother has a small you-know-what? Is it true you make less than $30,000? That's not your business. Just because you ask doesn't mean I have to answer. You don't have a right to that information. You're getting into something that's not your concern. And you're putting me in a tough spot. Because I either tell the truth and let you steal info you have no right to, or I lie to protect someone I care about. And I chose to lie to protect someone I care about. He asked me, does your brother cheat on his wife? And I said, no, not that I know of. Now, a friend of mine offered a fourth option. Let me know what you think. He said you could have answered, don't you think that question is kind of disrespectful? Why are you asking me that? Don't you think you're sticking your nose where it doesn't belong? And I thought it was a really good response. But still, I think even that kind of gives away the truth. Because if it weren't true, you'd just say no. So, what do you think? Are there situations where lying is better? Or should you never lie under any circumstances? Which life rule is more important? Always tell the truth? Or always do what's right? Not always the same thing. They're a couple, and they're friends. The situation is getting awkward because there's some tension between her and him. You can feel it. And 95% of people end up making these mistakes. Here's the first mistake. Daniel and Pedro are childhood friends. They meet at a wedding, and both have gorgeous girlfriends. After chatting for a while, Pedro starts feeling a little bad. He can't stop thinking that Daniel's girlfriend seems better than his. She's cheerful, pays attention to what Pedro is saying, is helpful by bringing drinks for everyone, and is super affectionate with Daniel. The funny thing is, Daniel secretly thinks the same about Pedro's girlfriend. Not exactly the same, but he does feel Pedro's girlfriend has amazing qualities his own girlfriend doesn't. He finds her comments incredibly smart and loves how elegant and cultured she seems. For both of them, the grass seems greener on the other side. They focus on all the good things about their friend's girlfriend and ignore what they have. And you know what happens next? Pedro gets drunk.
Wait, don't tell that part yet. You'll ruin the video. First, tell them the office gossip.
You mean about the married guy?
Yes, that one.
All right, here it goes. But we'll get back to the wedding story later. Felipe has been married for 10 years. Of course, the honeymoon phase is long gone, and now he has a running list of complaints about his wife. Little things like leaving hair in the shower or forgetting to close the toothpaste. Medium things like forgetting his birthday. And bigger things too. After living together for so long, he knows every single one of her flaws. Meanwhile, there's a new coworker at his office who's incredibly sweet. She often brings him small gifts like donuts or coffee, asks him how he slept, and stays late to help when needed. She's always cheerful, well-dressed, and young. Felipe can't help but compare her short list of good traits to the long list of complaints he has about his wife. It's hard not to think about it, especially when he comes home late and exhausted to a grumpy wife who's nagging him about fixing a light bulb that's been out for over a month. But you and I both know what's happening here. The grass always seems greener on the other side. If Felipe made the mistake of leaving his wife to start something with his coworker, you and I know how it would end. 9 out of 10 times, the same thing happens. Soon, he'd realize this perfect person has her own flaws, just as big or even bigger than his wife's. Then he'd regret leaving someone who was there for him through thick and thin for 10 years. This is how the mind works. We see all the good in what we don't have and all the bad in what we do have. It's a bias. Pay attention to that. It's important. Here's a sad example. Roberto was estranged from his father for the last 10 years of his life. When his father died unexpectedly, Roberto couldn't stop thinking about all the good moments they shared and his dad's great qualities. Now, he can't forgive himself for wasting the years they could have spent together. All right, enough with the sad tone. Let's get back to the wedding drama. As the night goes on and the drinks keep flowing, Pedro tells Daniel, "Hey, I just wanted to say, your girlfriend is amazing. She's cheerful, attentive, and let me tell you a joke. So there was St. Peter doing his daily chores. This one to heaven, this one to hell, this one also to hell. Whoa, wait a minute. What do I do with this one? Better ask. Last time I messed up and got scolded. Lord, I have a question. What is it, St. Peter? What's your doubt? Lord, can you explain exactly who I'm supposed to let into paradise and who I should throw down to burn in hell? And God says, St. Peter, that question's simple. Let in the people who truly made the most of their lives. Oh, got it, of course. Those who really lived their lives to the fullest. He leaves. But 5 minutes later, he comes back. Lord, Lord, but how do I know who made the most of their life? And God, getting a little frustrated, says, divide the number of days they went to bed feeling satisfied by the number of days they lived. That'll give you their satisfaction percentage. But Lord, I don't know math. Can you show me with an example? So God points down to earth and says, look, St. Peter, focus on them. See that guy? He's walking with his dog. They're walking by the river, out in the countryside. Now watch what he's thinking. He doesn't look like he's enjoying it. He's thinking about work. He's thinking about how he's going to pay rent. He's thinking about how unfair his boss is. He's missing out on the experience. This walk with his dog, which is a gift. If he keeps that up, when he gets here, I'm sending him to hell, right? Now look at the dog's mind. He's watching the river, chasing squirrels, happy to be walking one more day beside his friend, who he loves. That's what it means to truly live the moment. Sparky is living it up. He goes to heaven. It's like that with everything. Look at how he was last night at home. While his wife was enjoying cooking dinner, putting on music, setting a nice table, he was stuck in his own head. He didn't enjoy dinner with his wife. But why doesn't he enjoy the moment, Lord? Because he's not there. His mind's somewhere else. Because he's got the wrong philosophy. And 95% of the world lives like that. They think life's about getting somewhere. That once they arrive, then they'll be happy. Once they buy a house, or get married and start a family, or once they've saved enough money, or won that championship, they don't enjoy life now because they believe happiness is waiting for them in the future, once they reach that place. But they don't realize that place doesn't exist. Happiness and fulfillment aren't places you arrive at. I get it, Lord. But if that philosophy is wrong, what's the right one? Don't interrupt, St. Peter. Life isn't like a journey where you're trying to get somewhere and think you'll be happy once you arrive. It's not like that. Okay, I get it, Lord. But then, what is it like? Look again at the dog. When he's eating, nothing else exists but his food. He's immersed in the experience of eating. When he goes on walks with his friend, there's nothing else but the walk, the park. And when he's lying under a tree, look at his muscles, so relaxed. That dog is living the full experience of life. That's the whole joke. Now imagine someone who, when working, there's only one right way to react when you discover someone's cheating on you. A man comes back to his apartment because he forgot his wallet. He opens the door and finds his wife on the kitchen counter, kissing someone he knows, passionately. He immediately explodes.
You're a piece of work.
And lunges at his relative to give him what he deserves. No. That's not the right way. Rewind. A man comes home unexpectedly. He opens the door and finds his wife on the counter, kissing a relative passionately. The man falls apart, completely breaks down.
I'm not enough. I've never been enough. Of course she's with him. He's better than me. It's because I don't have money. It's because I'm not smart. It's because I'm not attractive.
No, that's not the right way either. Rewind. When life throws something at me that I don't like, I have 3 options. The first one you saw, fighting reality. Losing my cool, going crazy, totally losing my center, getting angry and fighting life. Very bad option. Number 2, crumble emotionally, spiral down, feel defeated. Also a very bad option. And the third option, a man forgets his wallet and unexpectedly returns to his apartment. By the way, this actually happened. A security camera caught it, and the video got posted. He walks in and finds his wife on the kitchen counter, kissing someone passionately. The man doesn't lose his center. He doesn't lose his dignity. He walks slowly toward them. The woman, when she sees him, backs away in shock. The man, the relative, also gets scared and backs away. He walks up, looks at them both. First at her, then at him. He grabs his wallet and turns around to leave. The woman throws herself at him and drops to her knees.
Forgive me, please. Forgive me.
He gently removes her hands. She's hugging his legs on her knees. Shakes hands with the relative. I don't know if he was really a relative, but it makes the story more interesting. The guy awkwardly shakes his hand, and the man calmly walks out of the apartment and closes the door. Now, of course it hurts. He was excited about the relationship. He thought they had something real. He thought they had a future together. And life just showed him they didn't. And in a strange way, he feels thankful that he found out now and not later. Because he has one rule for life. Always embrace and accept reality. Don't deny it. Don't fight it. Okay, I know he's not exactly the most attractive guy, but by telling a little white lie and using a fake Instagram account, he always manages to date women who are way out of his league. These poor women fall for a psychological trick called the decoy effect. Here's how it works. Step 1. He messages them from the decoy, his fake Instagram account, being super friendly and charming. He uses this account to gain their trust and make them feel comfortable. Step 2. He switches to his real account and tells a small lie to ask them out. The crazy thing is how often it works. When the decoy is done right, asking them out is almost effortless. The decoy is a strategy marketers use to influence your decisions. Think you wouldn't fall for it? Let me show you why it's more common than you'd expect. Let's break down how it works, what's on his fake Instagram, and the little lie he tells. Imagine you're buying flowers for your girlfriend, and these are your options. A bouquet of tulips, very pretty, for $10. A bouquet of roses, also very pretty, for $10. A bouquet of roses with a ribbon, and a card to write a personal message, also for $10. Which one would you pick? Out of 100 people, 16 choose the tulips, nobody picks the plain roses, and 84 go for the roses with the ribbon and card. That's exactly what the seller wants you to choose. Why? Because tulips are expensive to source, and the profit margin is small. But roses are dirt cheap, and they make a big profit on them. If the plain roses weren't an option, people would split evenly between the tulips and the fancy roses, which isn't ideal for the seller. So they throw in the plain roses as a decoy, knowing nobody will pick them, but they'll push you toward the fancy roses. You think, tulips or roses? I'm not sure, but this one with the ribbon and card is obviously better. And just like that, you fall into the decoy trap. Now, you're probably starting to figure out how this guy uses his fake Instagram as a decoy, right? Dan Ariely did this experiment at MIT. He took photos of two equally attractive students. When he asked 100 women on campus who they preferred, it was split 50-50. Then he introduced a decoy. He slightly distorted one guy's photo, adjusted the nose, spread the eyes a little, just enough to make him look a bit less attractive. Now, with three options, the first guy, his slightly less attractive twin, the decoy, and the second guy, the results changed. Suddenly, 70 to 80% of the women pick the first guy over the second. The same thing happened with the other student. When they distorted his photo, erased some eyebrows, added a couple of moles, the majority of women chose the other guy. Nobody ever picks the decoy. The ugly twin's only job is to make the other guy look better. So my friend made an Instagram account for his fake twin. When he goes to the beach, he photoshops half the pictures to look worse and uploads them to his twin's account. Then, from that account, he starts chatting with a woman he's interested in until he breaks the ice. Once she's warmed up to the decoy, he messages her from his real account. If you use the 2-minute rule, changing habits becomes easy. I have a lazy, chubby kid who I just cannot convince to exercise. So every day when I get home from work, I don't say, let's go exercise. I say, come walk around the block with me. Tell me how your day went. And when we finish that first loop and we're about to go back inside, almost every time he says, wait, let's do one more. And we end up walking for 20 or 30 minutes. Because once his body's moving, his mind's engaged, and he's got his sneakers on. The natural thing is to want to keep walking. By inertia, a body in motion tends to stay in motion. And a chubby guy on the couch tends to stay on the couch. For people who understand the 2-minute rule, it's super easy to build new habits. For example, never aim to read a book a month. That's a dumb idea. You're not going to do it. What you do is say to the lazy, chubby kid, let's read 2 pages together. He's not really in the mood, but hey, 2 minutes? That's doable. And often, once you're 2 pages in, you want to know what happens next, and then what happens after that. You get hooked and end up reading for 20 minutes. And by the way, the lazy, chubby kid is me. I'm naturally lazy, but I'm smart. I use the 2-minute rule for everything. The 2-minute rule is based on this principle. Motivation often shows up after you take action. Act first to feel motivated instead of waiting to feel motivated to act. But people get it all wrong. They want to become runners and say, I'm going to run 30 minutes a day. Then they come home tired from a rough day at work and think, ugh, I have to run 30 minutes. And their body's like, yeah, right, and drags them to the fridge for ice cream, and then they end up watching TV. Total beginners. If you want someone who's naturally lazy and chubby to work out, you don't say, let's go run 30 minutes, dummy. You say, let's walk around the block. And once they've done that, maybe they'll feel like continuing. If you want someone who never reads to start reading, don't say, read a book. Say, let's read 2 pages. And most likely 2 pages in, they'll want to keep going. The 2-minute rule is, take the big habit you want to build and break it in 2. Its tiniest version, something you can do in 2 minutes, and everything else. And it works because doing something for 2 minutes is easy, so you're not lazy about it. You just do it. And once you've started, inertia kicks in and you often want to keep going, because a body in motion tends to stay in motion. Want this lazy guy to wash that pile of dishes? Don't be dumb. Don't say, wash all those dishes. Say, put on a song you love and wash dishes for just 2 minutes. Once he gets into a rhythm, dancing a little while scrubbing, it's way more likely he'll finish them all. Now, the 2-minute rule doesn't work for most people, because there's one thing they mess up. And the author of Atomic Habits warns you about this in the book. The 2-minute rule is a contract, and the first thing people do is go break that contract. The deal is, there are people who are incredibly intelligent, but have a very lazy brain. Here's a test that will help you find out if your brain is powerful but lazy. Pay attention, because more than half of Harvard students get this simple question wrong. If you spent $11 on pizza and a drink, and the pizza cost $10 more than the drink, how much did the drink cost? Go ahead, pause the video if you need to. 3, 2, 1. All right. The first answer that came to your mind was $1. This answer feels intuitive, but it's actually wrong. If you didn't pause the video and stuck with that answer, we could say you have a lazy brain. Maybe you're smart. Maybe you can easily verify that the correct answer is actually 50 cents for the drink, $10.50 for the pizza, and $11 for both together. This isn't hard for you, but what's the point of having a powerful brain if it doesn't want to put in the effort? On one side, there's what a woman says she wants, what she thinks she wants. And on the other, there's what she actually responds to, what really works out there in the real world when choosing a man. This young, pretty woman says,
I just want a sensitive guy who always listens to me, who's sweet, who brings me flowers, who reminds me every day how beautiful I am, and who texts me all the time to show he's thinking about me.
But when a guy actually offers her all that, she turns him down, because that's not what she responds to. Then there's this other woman, a little older, who says,
I just want a hardworking, responsible man who stays out of trouble, who spoils me, asks me what I want to do, where I want to go, who calls and texts me. I want to be his priority.
That's what she says and thinks she wants. But again, it's not what she actually responds to. So what do women respond to out there in real life? Women respond really well to a guy who's a mystery, who feels like a challenge, someone they can't figure out. Let's break it down with a simple chart of the 3 male archetypes women are most drawn to. The vampire from Twilight, the dominant billionaire from 50 Shades of Grey, and the beast from Beauty and the Beast. What do these guys all have in common? What is it about them that sparks desire, curiosity, even obsession? First of all, they're all a mystery. The beast has a forbidden room where he hides his vulnerable side. The vampire disappears all the time without explanation and hides a dark, painful past. Christian Grey has locked up rooms full of pleasure and pain, and he's hiding deep emotional wounds. Second trait women respond to, power. The beast is rich and has brute strength. Christian Grey is a wealthy powerhouse. And the vampire? He's got super strength and speed. All 3 are dominant and protective. The beast saves her from the wolves, and then she heals him. That's where the romance begins. The vampire and the billionaire, they're secretly watching over her, always showing up to save the day. Next up, inner darkness. All 3 have a deep, dark side. And for many women, the fantasy is to transform the monster, to turn the beast into a prince, to take this mysterious, powerful, emotionally closed-off man and help him become loving and good. Life rule? Stop being so nice. Get more attractive by embracing your dark side.